Instead, we have some breaking news within the last 90 minutes here that you helped break regarding Evan Mobley's ankle injury. So what can you tell me and the good people of Cleveland and Cavaliers Nation about number 4 moving forward?
Well, you're not going to see him for a little while. The Mobley ankle injury is going to keep him out for a little while. The official wording that we landed on was an extended period of time. I know that's vague. That was by design. There's so much swelling in there right now. Doctors can't really get an official timeline on it until that swelling gets out of there. So I think a month is probably a safe estimation, somewhere around there, somewhere in that time frame. That's not anything that we're officially reporting. That's just for people wanting to know, well, what does an extended period of time look like? I think probably about a month seems pretty reasonable under the circumstances, which obviously puts them up against getting toward the end of the regular season. And, we've been talking about the 2 big lineup and trying to stagger their minutes. Well, that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
At least for the time being. And I don't know how much time they're actually going to have to sort through rotation once he's back. It's been a tough year for Evan, man, all the way around with injuries.
Yeah, I said on UCSS today that before we knew how long the injury was going to be, I said a sprained ankle could be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. Who knows, maybe even longer. But I was hoping we'd get some answers and some clarity, some finality on what the Cavs' best lineups and best closing lineups would be during this stretch in March where they play good team after good team after good team after good team. So that come April, JB Bickerstaff kind of had a really good idea and a really clear picture of this is my best 5. This is how these 2 guys work together. And whether or not Mobley and Allen could coexist in a crunch time lineup. And it's just kind of frustrating from my standpoint that now I don't think we're going to be able to get those answers, because when he does return, whether that's the end of March, early April, there's only a few games left to kind of ramp him back up into things. And frankly, one thing with Evan Mobley is when he's on offense, I don't want him thinking. I just want him acting. Yeah. The more Evan thinks, a lot of times the worse the outcome is. And I've been through a sprained ankle before. I've had to play coming off a sprained ankle. And until you're 100% confident that it's back to being what it was prior to the injury, there's always that slight hesitation in the back of your mind that you may tweak it again. So Evan Mobley having to deal with that on top of all the other things he does within this offense, there's just not a lot of time to figure out what to do with those guys. And in Evan's case, this was going to be a big month for him, trying to prove he is one of those guys at the end of the game that needs to play. So we'll see, but not good news, especially with Donovan out. And that may not be as quick of an injury recovery as at first we were led to believe either.
Yeah, the thing that I keep stressing, the Cavs said they would reevaluate after 3 games. I think a lot of people assumed it was going to be just 3 games for Donovan. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. It was 3 games, basically a week. Give him the week and then reevaluate and see where he's at. And no Strus either. They're going to tip off here in about an hour. So not great news all the way around. And, one more point on this, the evidence is mounting that they're at their best with one of these dudes in the middle and 4 shooters around them. Like it's becoming clear.
Yeah.
And we can do shows on that in the off season about what you do moving forward with that. I wrote about it today before we figured out the Evan situation, that it's a weird little riddle for the Cavs, because no one will dispute that Evan and Jarrett are 2 of the best players on that team. But they're at their best with only one of them on the floor.
Fact.
So what do you do? And who do you pick? And it may lead to them having to have a conversation in the offseason about moving on from one of them. And I know which one it's going to be, and it's not going to be Evan Mobley, I don't think, if push comes to shove. And again, every time I talk to people around the league, all offseason, even into this season, they're at their best with Evan at the 5. I know the numbers may say differently, but people around the league who know the game believe it's Evan at the 5 and 4 shooters around him is when they're at their best. Now, JB said last night, we are at our best when Jarrett Allen is at his best. And Jarrett means a lot to this team. So I don't know how you untangle this. It's really kind of a weird spot to be in when 2 of your best players, and then you can have the same conversation about the backcourt of Donovan and Darius. But right now, when we're talking Evan and Jarrett, it's sort of weird that 2 of your best players on the team aren't necessarily making the best 5 on the floor. And that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, let's talk about the two big lineups here just because it kind of goes hand in hand with Mobley. And I got some numbers for you, Jason. This was prior to last night's game. So this was before the Boston Celtics game. And these were the Cavs' net ratings with Allen on the court without Mobley. They're plus 12.6 in the net rating. With Mobley on the court without Allen, they had a plus 5.99 net rating. When they're both on the court together, a plus 4.6. There are some caveats to that. When they were on their 18-2 streak, when they were red hot, a lot of those games came against subpar competition with Allen on the court, Mobley on the sidelines, sitting out with his first injury. So there is a little bit of a caveat to it. Maybe the numbers aren't that drastic one way or another, but I've come to the conclusion, and I was pretty steadfast on it until, frankly, Sunday night, that those two, the two bigs, Mobley and Allen, had to be in the closing lineup. Like, those are two of your four best players. No matter how you slice and dice it, you figure out a way to make those guys play. But the Knicks game in particular, not even what Dean Wade did last night, which we're going to break down in full effect coming up in a few minutes, but it was more in the Knicks game, and we showed it on the show, but this picture in particular, and you can see Evan Mobley in the corner up top here, and Darius Garland just didn't even take a look at him. And this was not the only possession. This is just the one still shot I pulled for the sake of this discussion. If Evan can't shoot threes and you could put four bodies in the paint, and I made a couple phone calls today to a couple of NBA assistant coaches asking, hey, if Evan's back and Isaac are back, would you guard him in the playoffs? And without even a second of hesitation, the answer goes, they got to make 3 or 4 first before we're going to guard them. So you can't play 3-on-5, 3-on-4, or 4-on-5, in prolonged stretches. So at this point, I was hard on the side of you got to play them, figure it out. Like, they're two of your four best players. After Sunday, I think I'm teetering towards one big right now. And at this point, in my opinion, it's Allen. It could be next year at Mobley when he's healthy, fully recovered. But coming off this ankle injury, coming off the second injury since December, I just think Allen gives you a better opportunity on both ends of the court. And the numbers with him and Donovan Mitchell together are through the roof. They've developed one of the best pick-and-roll chemistries in all of basketball, and I don't want to sacrifice that just to allow Evan Mobley to get the reps he probably needs to develop. It's kind of an unfortunate situation, in all honesty, for Evan. I actually feel bad for him in a sense, how this whole situation's kind of unfolded in front of him. It's led to wins. It's led to the Cavs being a better basketball team, but it certainly has stunted his growth and his, potential rise into the unicorn category he was tabbed on when he was drafted by the Cavaliers 3rd overall.
Yeah, I still think he's going to be a dominant player in this league for a really, really long time, but certainly, I don't know that he's progressed at the track that I thought that he would. We talked about that on the show the other day. And it goes back to when he first came back from the knee, and I said, I want him to shoot 150 to 175 3-pointers the rest of the way. Well, he wasn't on pace for that even before this. No. He got hot there for a few games where he started making some threes, and you thought, all right. And then that sort of went away. And the point I was trying to make with that was, you have to find out if you can play these guys together or not. And the only way to find out is for him to shoot these threes and see if he'll make them. That's what the regular season is for, to figure out what your best postseason lineups are. And we have the answer now. And I tend to agree with you. I don't think you can play them together in a closing lineup at the end of games, and not only because we didn't see the 150 to 175 threes, but because it just never became part of his game. Like, the whole point was, I wanted to see if he could make that part of his game, make it a real weapon, so that teams would have to come out on him. And clearly, that Knicks has proven. And by the way, Isaac was wide open in the other corner, and nobody was guarding him either.
So, a little different with Isaac because his defender is in the help area, but they're not locking onto him like they would a Sam Merrill or Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland in that sense. And you can see Sam Merrill on the top of your screen here. DiVincenzo not leaving his side even remotely in that scenario. Now, he wouldn't help because from the position he's in, but you can kind of see who they are willing to help off of, who they're willing not to guard at all, and who they're not willing to come off with whatsoever.
Right. So, and Evan, they just weren't going to pay any attention to him, which is why I wanted the 150, 175, 3 a game, 3.5 a game, something like that. If you can find the rhythm, if they start going in, teams will have to pay attention to it. Unfortunately, that never really developed. So now we're back to where we were, prior to the knee injury. That I just don't know. I tend to agree with you. I think it's probably one or the other, especially in key moments down the stretch. I don't know that it's both. And now we don't even have to worry about that for the next few weeks at least.
And it's good to have versatility. If you have to go two bigs, you can go two bigs. I mean, the numbers with both of them on the court together aren't terrible. They're not bad. It's just they're better, the numbers and the eye test, when one's on the bench and one's playing surrounded by four shooters. And, one of the complaints, or not, let me rephrase that. One of the reasons I thought you had to play both of them was you have two 7-footers. I know neither one's technically 7 foot, but two legit bigs on the court together. You should dominate the glass.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw Chicago do that in reverse to Cleveland last Wednesday. However, when you actually look into the numbers, they're a better rebounding team when Dean Wade's on the floor than they are with any individual Cav not named Tristan Thompson. They grab 4.5% more defensive rebound when Dean Wade's at the 4 with either of the bigs than they do with the two bigs together, which kind of blew my mind. I wasn't expecting that. That was according to Second Spectrum Sports. And Dean Wade is in the 90. Say it again.
That's a good transition.
It is, and we'll get there in a sec. But Dean Wade is one of the better positional rebounders in basketball. Now, he's not going to pull down crazy numbers. He had 8 rebounds last night, a couple big offensive rebounds, which we'll break down in a sec. But when you look at the sacrifice you get, in theory, from a rebounding aspect to enhance your shooting and spacing, I don't think the sacrifice of rebounding is actually anywhere near as big as you would think by subbing out an Evan Mobley or a Jarrett Allen for Dean Wade. At least the numbers don't back it up. I'm not 100% sure that passes the eye test theory yet, but the numbers back up that their rebounding is just fine with Dean Wade at the 4 and either one of the bigs at the 5, which I wouldn't have guessed before looking into that today.
Dean is very underrated, and that goes for me as well. I've noticed he's a much better defender this year than I ever gave him credit for in the past. I don't know if he's gotten better or if I just didn't notice it, but he's pretty good. Like, he could be a starter in this league on another team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's a legit 6'9" too, by the way.
Yeah,
legit 6'9".
He could be playing big time minutes and carrying a starter's role on a lot of other teams, including probably this one. If JB wanted to reenact the 3 bigs that he had when Markkanen was here, Dean could be that small forward, that 6'9" small forward. I think. I mean, he's done it before.
Yeah. And
they even played him at center last night. So he's very versatile. Obviously, a great shooter. We know that. And another one of those guys that they found on the margins and they've developed into a really nice rotational piece, which is what you have to do in this league, especially with where the Cavs are at with the first round pick situation and their lack of assets. You have to hit on these guys, and they've done a really nice job of developing Dean Wade.